so I'm Nathan Bell. I think last time I spoke here, as I recall, I spoke about my spiritual psychosis books, The Wizard and the I-Man, and Shamanic Journey, which focus on a psychosis which I had where I thought I had supernatural and psychic abilities and thought that I was in touch with spiritual entities. So I've written another book in that series since then. I had started it at the time and it's now complete and published. So I'll give a little bit of a talk about the latest book in what's now called the Supernatural Psychosis series, which is The Wizard's Spell. Then I'm briefly going to discuss my other two short stories which aren't related to mental health and spirituality. I can't recall if I discussed them last time. And those are 1 Minute to Midnight and Saturday Night on Beaumont Street. And I'll also read a couple of pages from The Wizard's Spell. So about The Wizard's Spell, again, it's about this period in my life which lasted for a year or two, where I was in this deep psychotic state where I was hearing voices and having hallucinations, and I very much felt I was in touch with spiritual entities. So I thought I was becoming a great and powerful wizard. I thought it was my destiny to master the magical arts and become a great wizard and prophet who would lead humanity into the future. And in The Wizard's Spell, it focuses on me in my apartment, the apartment I used to live in over at King Street, casting a spell of love over the city of Newcastle, because I was always performing these rituals around the city and in my apartment, which were meant to be a spell of love over the city of Newcastle to bring love into the world and to enchant the city of Newcastle with the essence and power of love to unite the people of Newcastle and to unite humanity. So that's what I thought I was doing at the time in my grandiose delusional state. So in The Wizard's Spell, I do all sorts of funny rituals. Like, for example, I had this collection of sounds I'd found on YouTube, which were reportedly, according to the YouTube channels they were on, were the sounds of Jupiter, and were the sounds of Earth, and were the sounds of different moons in the solar system, and were sounds from deep space. So I would put those sounds on, like the sound of Jupiter, for example. And when I put it on, I thought that was pouring the essence of the energy of the planet Jupiter into my apartment. And so when I was casting my spell and performing my rituals, my dances and my drumming and my chanting that I would do, I would have the sounds of Jupiter, for example, playing, and that was giving my spell the energy of Jupiter, because in the belief system I was immersed in at that time, each planet had its own spirit force. It had its own conscious awareness. The Earth had its own conscious awareness, Mother Nature, the Gaia spirit. Jupiter had its own conscious awareness, and the various moons had their own awareness as well. Every astronomical entity had its own spirit and consciousness. So I believed I could tap into the forces of these different planets and moons and various things, and also the overall spiritual essence of the universe and the cosmos as well. So I would play those sounds, and then I would tap the drum and tap the drum and tap the drum, because I believed that the whole universe was a symphony of frequencies. And you might have heard this sort of thinking before on the internet if you're into that new age stuff. A symphony of frequencies, and if we became in alignment with cosmic bodies through matching our frequency with the frequency of those cosmic bodies, that would help us transcend the earthly realm and become one with the spiritual dimensions. So that was one of the weird things I was doing, was tapping into cosmic frequencies by playing the spirit sounds of the universe through my stereo. I was doing a bunch of other strange behaviours as well. Like I had these altars that I had built, and this is what is on the front cover of The Wizard's Spell, one of my altars that I had built. I built about 4 of these altars, and I've got numerous photos of them. And they were altars which were basically just tables I'd put together with scraps that I'd found around the place. And then I would leave trinkets that I had found around the city all over them. Like I found a tarot card once, so I put the tarot card on the table. And then every trinket that I had put on the table would I would light candles over it, and the candles would, over time, would embed the objects into the table. And I believed that, for example, with the tarot card, I believed that when it became embedded in the candle wax, the magic of the tarot card became embedded in the table, and that reinforced the supernatural properties of the table. And then when I would cast spells in my apartment, that the magic of that table would further give power to my spells that I was casting, if that makes any sense. So it was this very elaborate spiritual belief system I had developed about enchanting objects and creating enchanted objects. So what else would I do that was silly when I thought I was a wizard? Obviously, as I said, the tapping the drum, because I believed that, and I would tap the drum and I would say love, 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 love. With each tap of the drum I would say love. And what that was doing, according to what I was thinking, was I was giving my mental energy of the word love and my intention of love, and sending it from my mind into my fingers into the vibration of the drum, which then sent it out into the universe. So I was putting the energy of love out into the universe. Another thing that appears in the wizard spell is I also had numerous psychic visions, if you will. Now, doctors would say that this is mental illness and schizophrenia, but I had some pretty profound visions. I was in a mania one day, dancing around my apartment, jumping up and down to heavy metal, and then all of a sudden, all I could see was this vision of a futuristic city with levitating buildings and flying cars and trees everywhere and robots. And that actually happens in this story. So that would be what in ancient times would be called a prophetic vision of the future, a psychic vision. So that was one thing that happened, and that happens in the story. I also heard many voices of spiritual entities, which is obviously mental illness, but if you take alternative spiritual interpretations of that, well, perhaps I was hearing the voice of spirit. So in the story, an angel speaks to me twice. The angel tells me that I am a genius first, and then I become convinced that I have all the knowledge of the universe has been given to me by the angel, and that I have to share it with humanity. And then the angel tells me, get this one, talk about being fully self. The angel says, when you start working, you will become Jesus. And that I actually heard that in my head as a distinct separate voice on one occasion when I was very psychotic. So I've put that into the story as well. Now, the story isn't an immediate reflection of events as they unfolded. It's an amalgamation of the sorts of hallucinations and delusions I was having over a couple of years, all put into a fictitious account of one day of probably, in the story, what is about an hour or two of events. So, and that's the case with many of my fictional memoirs. They take events that have happened over many days and a longer period and amalgamate them into a shorter fictional account of usually around a few hours of activity. So yeah, all sorts of bizarre things happen in the wizard spell. And as I said, the wizard spell is a part of my Supernatural Psychosis series, which is a 3-part series. As I said, The Wizard and the Iron Man, The Wizard Spell, and Shamanic Journey, all short stories, each $15 if you want one. And they account various aspects of this period of my life when I was in this deep spiritual psychosis, and I was convinced I was having a spiritual awakening. So yeah, that's a bit about the wizard spell and the greater series.